Okay, great. So today we want to talk about one of the issues that we've been discussing for a really long time, and we have quite a lot of community discussions there, which is allow fork pipelines to run in a parent project. And when this originally was opened, the idea, there were like a few different use cases that we wanted to solve. So like one of the intended users that is mentioned here is enterprises that are using forking workflow with GitLab.
Open source is also a really important one.
Yeah.
We should add.
So open source is one. We also want to solve our own problem with community contributions, which might also be part of this issue. So there's quite a few different use cases that we can discuss on solving, and we don't have to solve them all in the first iteration. So basically, in the beginning, when we thought about breaking down this issue, the first thing that we wanted to do was local repos, meaning, you know, just using GitLab, everything inside of GitLab, and not handling things coming from GitHub or others in terms of the scope of this issue. And that was the first time that we broke down this issue. It's still quite large. And when we started discussing the issue in the comments, we got a bunch of feedback, which is great, where people were like, here's my use case, here's my use case, here's my use case, and they're all different use cases. And we wanted to discuss where to start from. Probably we need to create an issue per use case, but we just need to start with one. I don't think it really matters which one at the moment, because with our fruit voting system, it looks like the number of apples and bananas and pineapples are pretty much the same. But what we did discuss, Shinya, is maybe the possibility of not working on this original issue, but maybe swapping it with fetch sources from parent projects for MR pipelines and run on merge result as a first step. I kind of wanted to, I got a little bit lost in all the commentary, and I just want to make sure that, you know, we're all on the same page and discuss the different options that we have to solve the problem.
So basically this issue, you know, I created 3 proposals for the original issue, and each proposal has a fruit, right? And this like fetch sources from parent project is one of them. So we can just ignore the this side issue and focus on these 3 proposals.
Okay.
By the way, I have a question about the target users, customers. Can you scroll up to the issue description?
Yeah.
So it says enterprise that uses working workflow with GitLab. Is it like on-premise customers or GitLab.com users?
I think it's probably both.
Both? Oh, okay.
I don't see why we would exclude one or the other, but I don't mind starting with one where I assume self-managed is a more common use case.
Okay. So the other question is, do they use private forking workflow or public forking workflow? So like, does a customer create a public project and then enforce all developers to create a fork project because they don't want to mess up the original repository? Or I know that this is one of the use case for this issue. And then, you know, the other opportunities like us, like GitLab, it's an open source project and we accept a lot of external contributors, right?
Right.
And I think also it's one of the use case.
Yes.
What user should we target at first?
I'll answer the question with a question. What's easier?
Easier.
We probably need to cover all the use cases, like both use cases. But I want to start with something, and
I don't know. I mean, like, before talking about technical difficulty, I think we should talk about with majority, because even if it's technically feasible, if the listeners is minority, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So just wanted to make sure that we are delivering future to the majority.
I don't know. I think, and I'd like Jason's opinion here. I think maybe it's a good place to start with our own use case, which is allowing external contributions, just so that we can test it out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Making it work for GitLab users who want to contribute to GitLab, and supporting that workflow does seem like a nice place to start, because we'll have a lot of people who can give us feedback quickly. And that should be pretty similar. I think the other, no, they don't pay us, so that's one consideration, but the open source projects that use it, who are important in other ways other than giving us money, is that they also do similar workflows to what we do, where we have a public project and then you can fork it to your public project and then submit a merge request and get it back. And so I think that they would want to have it work in a very similar way. So that's another plus. You know, enterprise users who have everything locked down and still use a working flow is also interesting. I don't know really what the differences are on the back end between supporting that one or the others, because I'm less familiar with that workflow. But I think between those two, we could start with either one. But if, you know, if one of them is way easier and we can get it working and get it to those users, then that does make sense to do that. But otherwise, my preference would be to do the one that we can test with our own users, the GitLab contributors. Does that answer the question sufficiently?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I understand that reading from the description, that environments will not be supported to start off from, including like project group specific runners and secret variables, etc. Those all those things, because if we want to support like our internal customers, review apps would be a big part of that, and supporting the community contributors. It's a big part of the review flow. And is there? I mean, are there like what is the extent of the pipeline that we want to run? Like, are we only intending for like testing the code, or are we going beyond that?
It's an improvement to test the code. I think that people will want review apps. But it's nice even just to see your build pass in the context of the, because there's more configuration in the parent project sometimes. Like this is something that Marin would be good to talk to you about. He's worked on this quite a lot and thought about how he can get, and he actually may have the more like internal perspective. So he has all these special projects that do things like the release. So he wants developers to be able to run pipelines in his projects that that can do certain things, but not deploy it to production.
Right.
But in order to do some of the things they need to do, they need some of the data that that's in his project. They don't need all of it, but they need to be able to do things like, I can't even remember off the top of my head, but I would really set something up to chat with him about this flow as well once you got it a little bit more sorted out. And I think that would be an interesting way to look at it as well. But to answer your question, Dimitri, from my point of view is you would definitely, I think, eventually want to turn on access to review apps. But the thing that we have to be really careful about this is unintentionally exposing things. And review apps need to be able to deploy to somewhere. And so the credentials need to be available to the job that does that, which means that somebody could try to print them out or email them to themselves or something. So we just have to be really careful there. And I think starting without environments is the right thing to do, and then try to explore some other way to enable that.
Yes, so something that Shania and I had discussed asynchronously in the issue was that users would explicitly mention what they're giving access to. Like it's not like you give access to everything. You need to specify exactly what you're allowing.
Yeah, and it should just be super restrictive by default, and
Yeah, and it'll require a bunch of testing.
yeah, there's a ton of value just to being able to run the pipeline, and we should start there and focus on that. And yeah, it gets complicated very quickly. The other thing that that I think is going to be important, and you need some way to control what jobs run, depending on if you're building a fork. So I don't know if there will be some environment variable available or some rules syntax that will be available, but you should say, you know, this isn't a security thing because somebody can change the GitLab CI YAML, but you should be able to say as a courtesy, don't try to run this job if we're running a pipeline for a fork, because it's not relevant, it's going to fail anyway, and so don't even try. So there should be some way to do that. Otherwise, pipelines will fail because they try to do things they don't have permissions for. And that can be very simple. There's environment variables. I have a little snippet here on my computer where I have.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
No, I'm not going to share it because I think I have secrets in it, but it's just like my notes on what environment variables are available, including the, you know, actually printing out from a real pipeline what it looks like. So I'm just going to look here and see. We have, yeah, we have CI pipeline source, which says push right now on a push, but maybe in this case we could set that to fork or something like that, and then you could, you know, have a rule on your jobs that says like do different things based on that, or maybe you could also introduce a new variable. Or maybe there's another variable that where it will even happen automatically. But yeah, that's definitely something to probably include right away, or if not, very, very quickly after, because people are going to run into it.
Okay.
So actually, one of the users, there's a username called Jelby. You can see the comments. His comments
they're
below.
a nice contributor. I see them in a lot of places.
So like he also pointed up the kind of similar point that that today's problem is that the pipeline, the configuration in parent project and fork project are slightly different. So parent project users cannot trust the fork pipeline results because fork contributors can change their pipeline configuration to like something, I don't know, disguise the pipeline result.
To make it look like it passes even if it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, but yes, so that's a totally legitimate point. And yeah, the proposal is that like, let's try to make a pipeline in parent project instead of fork project, right? And then also that comes with security concerns that I don't want to expose all of the resources belong to parent project. For example, clusters. Maybe parent project doesn't want to share clusters to fork project because it contains a lot of secrets. Yes. So actually, our cutting edge is that I think the best solution for the first situation is Pineapple. You can see in the below.
Yeah, it has 6 votes, Pineapple.
Yeah.
What is Pineapple?
I think it's basically like taking an advantage between them. Like the Pineapple is basically, it doesn't allow for external contributors to create pipeline in parent by default. It doesn't allow. But parent project members can create pipelines instead of them as a behalf of them. So at first, external contributors going to submit the merge request to parent project, right? And then parent project members going to examine it. And then at first they do code review and they make sure that there are no like malicious code in Matrix, like trying steal secrets from parent project, etc. And after the maintainer in parent project, make sure that they click a button, like a run pipeline button. Today, you can see in the Matrix tab, pipeline tab in Matrix. And when they click the button, it actually creates, the maintainer creates a pipeline for merge result as a behalf of the external contributor.
That's pretty nice.
Well, yeah,
It's
or it
annoying
could be.
because if you get a lot, that's nice because it then runs as the user who clicks on the button, which is super, super clear, and there's no magic happening there. It also gives you a chance to say, like, is this some malicious thing? And that's good. The downside, of course, is that some poor person has to go click on all of these things.
Yeah, it's manual, yes.
But maybe that's a pretty reasonable place to start, just to make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves on features. And that's actually the most
will this
uploaded
be
one,
maintainer or just any project member?
We can create another permission for this. I would say like only maintainers.
I would say anybody who can run a pipeline in that project should be able to do it. The more, because they can already kind of do it, right? Like they could just create a branch as a copy of the fork. They could do it by hand, so you're not really restricting anything. And also, if you're going to make a team handle something manually for now, then it should be as many people who can help. You don't want to have to add people to maintainers. Like I think any developer should do it, is be able to do this basically what I'm getting.
So the thing that I will foresee, because I'm in favor of allowing us to do that. So for example, say that the community contributor comes in, I see that they're pushing the code, I see it's a CSS change, I know, and like seems like a good thing. Like, hey, I want to see if this will run the review app. I push for the pipeline to be run. However, security will then depend on, how well we are, reading the code as it could be very, like, what I want to showcase is there's also a risk of, for example, a non-developer pushing for, the review app to become available while the code has not yet been properly reviewed, and it opens up, for example, it will open up showcasing some of the secret variables or something like that.
You sort of have that same problem with open source in general, and if people aren't reviewing the commits, then bad stuff will get in, with or without this feature. I don't know if this is making that worse. It's something to think about for sure.
I think we definitely need the security team here, but I think that as long as we're restricting it to people who can run the pipeline anyway, I think we're not making matters worse.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the pineapple plan was the most upvoted one?
Yes.
And that's a pretty strong case for it.
Well, it's 6 opposed to 2 and 3, so it's not like huge numbers, but it's an indication.
But if it makes sense, if we kind of came to the same conclusion, and that seems to be the place. So what are the other plans then that are less upvoted, just for contrasting?
So Shinya, can you walk through banana and apple?
I almost forgot what I wrote, but it's basically like either side, like exposing, like it's automatic, but allowing for contributors to access everything.
Yeah.
And then like the other one, the second proposal is, it's kind of this kind of line. Yes, like it's more like automatic way, but we have to build like security gates at first. Otherwise, parent resources is going to be vulnerable. So if we go down this path, we need more iterations to ship value to users, because You know, what we do at first is building the security gates for each resource. So
Yeah, and also it's in terms of explicitly enabling each resource, we need to create this huge list of stuff that I think it's unknown at the moment, but I assume this can be pretty large and would also require us to design a setting that has like this huge list of get that feature or the resources, the project resources, and then you need to check or uncheck whatever resource, and this can be rather large and would need pagination or some kind of option to sort and filter and just to make it usable, I think.
Yeah. I don't hear a compelling case for that.
I think if it's such a huge obstacle to using the feature, it's going to be both hard in implementation and use. Yeah, I would also go for a simpler solution to start out with.
Okay, so just to summarize, I think we have a really good first step, but we all understand that this is just a first step and that we're going to need to iterate on it, and also based on customer feedback. I don't really know what to do with the other issue, the fetch sources from parent project, if we should close it or if we should leave it open for now. But going back to this issue, I think I'm going to update the description for the proposal to basically allow only developers and up in a project to run the pipeline for the external contributors. And that's it for this iteration. We probably need to figure out review apps following up that and some way to make this easier for people who don't want to do it manually. But it's not for this
actually, one. You can read the Joby's comment below that. If external contributor, so this is specifically talking about private fork workflow. If like private workflow, it's like sometimes they like external contributors, also project member or parent project, member or parent project, because parent project knows that he's the contributor, the fork project.
That's fairly often, yeah.
It's employee. So if it's the case, like there's a fork module request, but the author of the fork module request is also a parent project member, we can just allow them to create a pipeline in parent without asking this manual step, going through manual step. So this is something like we can ship at the second iteration. So yeah, Joby's point is very legitimate. And if you have two features, I think it covers a lot of cases.
Would be very nice, like an automation of making one step less manual.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we have a plan. Are there any more questions or comments or anything that we need to jot down?
Got some notes, which I will update inside of the issue.
Great, and we'll also update the description. Shinya, I will ask you to reevaluate the weight based on the proposal that we decided.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it. I'm giving you some time back.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Sounds like a good plan. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, maybe record and post. Did we record this? Yeah.
We did.
It's unfiltered and share it with the folks in the thread and see if we missed anything. Cool.
Okay, great.
Bye.